So, I'm Danny Perschonok, and I am here with Michael Stackpole, who wrote Vol'jin, the new World of Warcraft novel.
Right, glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Okay, so the first question I have is, who approached you to write the World of Warcraft Vol'jin, and how did the initial conversation between you and Blizzard go?
Well, I got introduced through a mutual friend at Cryptozoic.
Okay.
And so letters of introduction went back and forth between me and Jerry Chu.
Okay.
And then Jerry put me on a phone conference with Mickey Nielsen and a number of other guys in the development crew, and we just sort of generally talked about availability and kind of the sort of thing they were looking for, and it looked to me like it was going to be a good fit.
Right.
They sent me a bunch of material, including all the games up to that point.
Okay.
So I plugged them in my computer and started playing around and said, okay, yeah, I could work in this world.
Nice.
Yeah, this is good.
About how long did you work on the book, or when did you get approached, and then how long did it take you to actually complete it?
We started talking in February. I think we signed a contract by the middle of April, and I guess I started writing in July. That was when we got the outlines finally nailed down, and I was done by the middle of September.
Okay.
Now, I'm a really fast writer, and
sounds like it.
And that's the only thing I do.
Okay.
But this book was actually really easy to write. Some books are really torture, but this one I was able to work consistently on it, and it felt really, really good.
Okay.
And what I would do is, I would work on the book, during the morning and the afternoon, and then in the evening go back and play more Warcraft,
right.
and just sort of keep myself immersed in the world.
Right.
And that made it, again, writing it a lot faster,
awesome.
a lot easier.
That's awesome. Next question is, how was your overall writing experience with your first Warcraft novel and delving into the universe? I guess you kind of talked about that. But
yeah, no, it was great. I've worked in a number of different universes, and once you get used to the way Warcraft works, the way Blizzard works,
right.
It's really fairly easy. The main difference is that Blizzard works really hard on the outline to make sure that the outline works up front, as opposed to working to fix it after the first draft is there,
right.
which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, save everybody time.
Exactly, and it worked out great. And the lore masters were wonderful. When I was doing the first draft, if I needed a background for a character, say, I remember there was one point where Tarathan talked about having seen Vol'jin before at a particular battle.
Okay.
And the lore master said, okay, here are 3 possible battles it could have been. And so I got to read up, give me all the sites, I'd read up on them, and it's like, okay, this is the one I pick, and then you make sure to weave that in.
Right. That's really cool. One common theme in the reviews of your work is just how character-focused the novel is. How did you go about developing characterization for pre-developed characters as well as the new characters?
Well, for the pre-developed characters, what you do is, and I've done this before, again, in Star Wars and other stuff, you look at how the characters have presented themselves. So in the case of Vol'jin, it was looking at both what it's like to be a troll, and that means literally playing a troll character and figuring out, given the lore and mythos and how the characters play, what their attitudes have got to be. And then specifically with Vol'jin, you look at how he's tied to tradition, how he is very, very dedicated. He's obviously a good friend, works very, very hard, has got a lot of respect for tradition. He also is not somebody who's afraid to speak his mind.
Right.
And so when you take the general background for trolls and their attitudes, and you take his specifics and you put them together, that pretty much tells you, at least in my case, that pretty much tells me how that character's got to be. And one of the things which was great about Blizzard is that they had said, look, here's what we think is going to be Vol'jin's story in this book. These are the things that we think we need to have happen. And I said, great, I can do all that, but I'm going to need another character as a counterbalance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so there was Tarathan, and for Tarathan, again, he was a character that I got to make up. But part of the thing was for him to be a good counterpoint and balance. And then the third character in that whole mix then was Chen. And again, taking the material that's already been written about Chen and taking his history, you know that he seems happy-go-lucky. You know he's smarter than that. And he and Vol'jin have been friends for long standing.
Exactly.
And you also know that he, like any Pandaren who wasn't from Pandaria, is on that quest for home, is searching for different things. And so again, you weave all those things together, and it tells you pretty much how that character's got to go.
Cool. What were some of the guidelines that Blizzard wanted you to follow throughout the development of the novel?
there really weren't that many. There weren't that many guidelines in terms of, you know, you have to do this and you have to do that, avoid this, avoid that. I mean, there was no 10 commandments, if you will.
Right.
But through the process of being over there, having meetings, you know, I had a 6-hour crash course in the history of Warcraft.
Right.
I mean, which is like a graduate level seminar.
There's a lot of information.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and so you get all of that. There were never any things where again, I was said, no, you can't do that. There were a lot of things that came up in the outline that they said, you know, we would negotiate about it. You know, why do you want to do this? And it's like, well, I need this to be able to accomplish that.
Right.
And then they would say, okay, here's something you might be able to use to get that effect.
Okay.
So what I really, really liked is they were very accommodating, and they were willing to let the story kind of dictate certain things that didn't counter the rules, but, you know, maybe just sort of
Bended them a little bit.
Yeah, went real close to the pole.
Right.
You know,
right.
Scraped a little paint off, but there you go.
That's cool. It's nice you have that much flexibility.
Exactly.
Were there any ideas of characters that you pitched to Blizzard that never made it into the novel, or was it just the one that you went with?
No, it was Tarathan was the only one that I pitched. I know that there were a couple other characters that we tried to work into the novel, and with the way the action was set up, it just wasn't gonna happen.
Right.
Because this ends up being a very personal story for Vol'jin.
Right.
And it is character focused, and so it really surrounds him.
Right.
And so there wasn't that much room for extraneous material.
Right.
Coming in.
Kind of already answered that question then. Who chose the name Tarathan? At first, fans had brought up to us that there's a character in the Warcraft lore named the Watcher of Tyr. So is that any relation in there, or is it just something you came up with entirely on your own?
No, actually, one of the things that I tend to do when I name characters is for heroic style characters, I usually choose a name. It's got a hard T sound or a hard K sound.
Okay.
And since we already had Chen, and that's in the CK family,
right.
The K was out. And so I was looking for things in the T area. I suggested 3 or 4 names. They came back with 3 or 4 names, and we finally cobbled something together and got Tarathan.
It's a great name.
Yeah.
It's a really good name. Let's see. What did the storylines found in your early game experiences teach you about the trolls and the history that you're able to put into the book?
You know, a lot of playing the trolls and reading about the trolls, yet the trolls have an incredible amount of arrogance, as they should.
Right.
They were there first. They are tougher than hell to kill.
Right.
And therefore, you know, you have to know they're going to be somewhat contemptuous about other things that can be broken.
Okay.
There is one scene in the book where Vol'jin gets to sort of travel through Tarathan's memories in Tarathan's skin.
Okay.
And he suddenly realizes that being a human being and being so fragile, is just, it's hard for him to comprehend.
Right.
You know, and I really wanted to play with that, you know, and have that in the fore, because that really is, I think, a driving force behind this. It's tough to kill a troll.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and so they've been around forever. It's tough to kill them. They've had all this tradition.
Yep.
They've got to be doing something right. And it's up for Vol'jin to figure out what it is they've been doing right, and then how to use that, or acknowledge how that's going to shape the future for the Dark Spears.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a scene after Vol'jin was stabbed where he was faced by Juan Swati. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. But he didn't claim his life. Is there any prerequisites before that he can claim a life like that, or?
No, I don't think so. I think it was, that was more born out of my general love for the fact that I always find the gods to be very capricious.
Okay.
And so for Vol'jin, that was sort of Vol'jin saying, hey, look, you could take me now, but it'll be more fun if you don't.
Right.
And I always find the gods are, at least that's the way I like to play the gods.
That's why you're a god, right?
Well, yeah. But I think, Juan Samdi and that sort of thing, the gods of death especially, when you look at them in folklore and stuff, tend to be willing to strike those bargains.
Right.
Because they know they're going to win in the end.
Exactly.
It's just a question of how much help they get, with their games. So,
Right. Do any of the other Loa claim souls, or is it just...
To the best of my knowledge, I think he's the only one that does.
Okay.
But that's a lore master question that I don't have an answer to, because I never never went in that direction. So.
Fair enough. What was the purpose of showing the Zandalari ritual thousands of years ago during the Akir and Troll War era?
What we were trying to do is, throughout the book, what you end up seeing through a number of different flashbacks is that you see Vol'jin getting a sort of a first-person sense of troll history and the troll traditions, and he was trying to reconcile the glory that was then with the situation that is now. One of the things that has happened throughout trollish history is that trolls will look back at the Zandalari great glory and try and recreate it. And one of the questions that Vol'jin has to answer for himself is recreating a past glory where we're supposed to be? Is that what is the essence of being a troll? Or is the essence of being a troll something else that is just part of?
Right.
And so only by taking him back and letting him examine that stuff firsthand through the dreams and things that Loa were presenting to him, could we give him enough information that he could make the decisions he has to make later on.
Right.
Plus, the other thing is for the reader, that gives him also a sense of just the grandness and breadth of the Trolls tradition, really reinforces that trolls have been around for a long time.
Yeah, there's a lot there.